when I got home from the library with my copy of Words of Radiance, I saw the gorgeous illustration on the cover title the thing of Shallan sketching, and her dress, it was like the most beautiful thing I had seen in my entire life. Not actually, but like kind of. Okay, and I was like, I have to make this dress. So I sketched and sketched and sketched all of Christmas break and Thanksgiving break because I wasn't near my fabric, I was traveling. And I was just like, I am going to make this. So on New Year's, New Year's Eve, I started. So anyway, this is the video where I am making Shallan's Havah, the born Havah. Oh my goodness. On to the video, but my goodness, I'm in love. And if you're wondering why I have a wand and I'm dressed like a Gryffindor, just because I wanted to dress up. And I mean, Harry Potter's fantasy, like, you know, at first I was really confused because I was like, what is this? What on earth is she doing? But then I looked at some pictures online, some original ideas, sketches for this picture by the artist, and I realized that much like the cover of Oathbringer, she has like these pants on underneath, and I was like, I'm not doing those. Like, I think it's really cool and all, but I just think this dress could work without the sweatpants thing. And honestly, I just, it's not really mentioned as far as like the traditional dress that these women would wear. It was more like something women who were active a lot, lower class women would wear. So I opted not to do the pants this time, but I am really fascinated. I'm going to do the slit. These gowns look like they're closed at the sides, and I think there's a little hint that they might also close down the front, because look at that, I think those might be buttons right there. And obviously gold trim. I think the bodice from other pictures is really long, kind of goes down to the hips, but is form-fitting at the top, so it's not like it's cinched really, or it's not like the skirt meets at the waist. I'm definitely going to make the bodice and skirt separate because that just will work really well with this dress. Okay guys, so the first thing I did was trace my desired bodice piece onto my fabric, and then I lopped that fabric right in half for my skirt piece to be set aside because I was kind of short on fabric for this. Then I cut out my bodice piece, making the whole like figure thing really pronounced so that I could keep the traditionally worn form-fitting shape, or at least the appearance of it. And then I traced my front panel onto my back panel, and I cut out my back panel. So my back panel was a little bit less curvy, I guess you could say, but it was essentially the same piece. And that's my side panel. It's real scraggly, and that's all the pieces pinned together. Okay, then I traced my bodice pieces onto my lining, which is bright green, because I guess no one was going to see it except you and me, and never mind. So I traced it on, and then I pinned, and then I rolled up my neckline so that it could be like nice and pretty, and I started on my collar thingy and made sure this square fabric was going to fit within my neckline, which I made kind of square anyway, and then I cut a hole in the center, made sure my head could fit through it, because that's kind of the point, and yeah, oh, it looks so smooth and nice. Okay, then I kind of like flattened out, made sure it fit, pinned around, and went on my jolly way. Oh, I spent a lot of time making sure that was perfect. Sorry. Okay, so the next thing I did was like make sure it all fit with that first color piece on. So here's the issue. I'm literally out of fabric. Like, I cannot take any more from this piece if I want those long worn sleeves. And the sleeves are one of the most important parts, so I'm not going to sacrifice any more of my sleeve pieces for my bodice, which I'm now tracing the lining. I'm not going to do lining for the side panels, but I will do it for the front and back. And that's kind of where my predicament is. Here's my front panel, and I'm really wondering about closures, which are very clearly on the Voron, whatever, you know, the traditionally Voron women's dress. It's kind of like a wrap bodice where you wrap it around and you button it down. Shallan's looks a little bit different than some of the ones I've seen, where it's kind of it starts buttoning down here and then kind of goes down here. So I think it's buttoned down this side, but I couldn't figure out how to do that on the bodice, so I figured I would just sew it and then cut, which is probably the worst idea anyone has ever come up with. Like, the bed sheet probably definitely wasn't enough. I think this might be enough for the skirt, but I was watching a Makara Tours video, and her skirt fabric was so much bigger than this, so we'll see. Mine does have a slit down the middle, so, or not down the side, so we shall see.
Alrighty folks, so I then sewed my bodice pieces to my lining, and I just pinned that all together once I was done to make sure it fit. I also sewed on the siding at this point, just, with each individual bodice piece, and just left that part where I thought I was going to leave the opening open. And then I tried it on and posed, and it's like, ooh, wow. And then I went to the collar, which is like a stiff piece of fabric and then a thin piece of fabric, and then I sewed them both into tubes and threaded the thick piece through the thin piece, and it just, yeah, if you have a thin piece, lightweight piece of plastic for this, I would suggest that, because it just might be way less of a pain in the butt than this was, and it might be less sloppy. So, but I'm not unhappy with the way it turned out. So then I just I finished off, like, sewed shut the tubes, and then I hand sewed that whole collar thing to my thin square that I measured out earlier. Oh, guys, an airplane just flew in while I was recording. How rude is that? Okay, so this is me pinning, this is more pinning, and this is the finished product. Then I tried it on, made sure it fit, tripped on probably a pin, and oh, then I administered the cut of doom that I was dreading. I was so scared, but my bodice is finally sewed together, and now there are birds. Anyway, I traced out where I wanted to cut, and then I cut down the side, and oh, that was scary, but it ended up working out and being a good closure place. So, you know, what works, works. After that, I went to work on my sleeves. So here's my safe sleeve. It was just kind of a big, long, one-piece tube that I sewed together. The other sleeve I didn't have any footage of, which is kind of good because it was haphazard because I had no fabric left. But I would just suggest taking a giant triangle that's longer on one side and sewing it together and cinching it. Okay, so then I sewed my sleeves to my bodice, and I sewed those gold rope thingies around my sleeves to give them the little poof and the little royal touch with all these gold accents. And then I did that to the same thing to the safe sleeve and did it higher up, because asymmetrical sleeves is like the whole point of the Havah. I just hand sewed those and ruched them along with it so that they would look a little bit poofed above the the longer side. Sorry, I'm not good with vocabulary. Okay, then I took this gold ribbon and I sewed it to the end of my non-safe sleeve. And then I went to work on my skirt, just ruching it in these areas. That's not ruching, is it? Anyway, I just cinched it a little bit in these areas, making it so that it would fit the hem of my bodice, I guess. Basically, so it would go around my hips. And yep, there we go. I fit it on. And then, because I didn't have enough fabric to give it the poof it needed to be of Warren Havah, I decided to take a shortcut and use tulle, just by like ruching it and then hand sewing it to the inside of the skirt. This kind of made it seem more like an 80s prom dress, so I wouldn't suggest it if you have enough fabric, but it worked in a pinch. Okay, then I rolled up my bodice hem that I had so rudely cut a while earlier, and I finished that off. And to the other side, I did the, well, I'll show you in a minute, but yeah, I just did whatever I could. Oh, that's a Tours video playing in the background, by the way. I don't know if anyone else has this, but I like to play sewing videos that are unrelated to my project in the background of me sewing. Okay, so here we are. I cut out a giant piece of white fabric just to sew to the inside, made it kind of moderately fit, and then finished it off on the edges. But mostly this was just to go under and provide some protection and like just be a backup in case the buttons failed. And that it did. And finished off any loose edges that I just had lying about. This is the cleanup part where I realized how many mistakes I made earlier. And then I finished off my other side of the collar that would not be buttoned. And I sewed my bodice to my skirt. Quite a momentous occasion. And then I painted these beads gold because I didn't want to spend any more money on than the $4 on the, I'm sorry, I'm really cheap, guys, but I painted all those beads gold and I hand sewed them to my bodice after marking off like 2 inches apart. This is a hack to make anything look more formal. Just have your buttons spaced evenly. Okay, this is how I sewed them on and made beads into buttons. They're essentially the same thing, guys, but yeah, it ended up working out great. And this is how I sewed them on. Pretty simplistic. Oh, for the buttonholes, I just like took a seam ripper, did it a few inches, make it slightly smaller at first, guys, because it's going to stretch the first time you put it through. Ooh, and then I sewed the slit in my skirt together, and it was really exciting because now like the dress was done, and it was very momentous. And then I went on to the glam. Oh, yes. Okay, bye. I am a stiff. Alrighty, and that is it. Thank you guys so much for watching this tutorial / adventure. It was really cool to do. I hope to be doing future fantasy sewing projects in the future. Also, okay, so things that I would not do the
same if I were to do this project again. I think the skirt, I didn't have enough fabric for it, so going to tulle for volume probably is a no-go. It just made it look kind of like frumpy, but I would just suggest getting more fabric and maybe doing an underskirt for it if you plan on doing this. And yeah, I'm pretty happy with how this turned out. The collar could use some work, but altogether, I like just Brandon Sanderson's, like, just all the fashion in Stormlight is amazing and so cool, and I'm so excited that I got to be a part of it. So, thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys next Saturday, and bye!